Today's gospel reading is one of the many passages where Jesus wants to make sure that his disciples understand the place of service and exercised at all levels, and then especially for people who play a role of authority. That authority is meant to be truly a service to others. Now, Jesus is well aware that there is a natural tendency for us to really seek to have control in our lives in such a way that if we look for promotions, if we want to climb up the ladder, if we want to be better educated people, stronger leaders, that we do so to get more control so that we can run our own plans and our own lives, that we can be our own bosses. And that's what the world teaches. And Jesus is very much aware of what kind of consequence that plays out when people really take on this control and abuse others in doing so. That's his concern. That's his worry. And so he teaches his disciples the importance of how they will live out their ministry, their mission, as strong leaders, as people of authority, but in such a way where they will be of service to others. And Jesus reminds them, who's the greater, the one who's at the table or the one who serves? Well, usually the one at the table is the one who is seen to be recognized as one who's got a lot more honor and power, and the one who serves is just helping out this person who seems to be more important, the one sitting at the table. And so Jesus says, well, remember that I am among you as one who serves. I am not the one sitting at the table. And if we are to follow Christ as disciples of his, if we are to grow in our faith and truly model ourselves on Christ, we will have to learn how to do so in our Catholic schools. Just think for a moment, and just before we get into what we do in Catholic schools, think for a moment, just your past weekend. How many people came to you and served you? I'm sure there's quite a few people, and more than what you probably think. Lots of people have been serving. I know for myself, I went to the gas station, so I had someone serving me there. I went to a restaurant, I had someone serving me there. I went to the store, I had someone helping me at the teller. I was celebrating Mass in Father Jacques' parishes. I had altar servers serving me there. We have people who serve us, and for you who have your parents at home, I'm sure they offered some kind of service throughout the weekend. And maybe as youth, you offered service to your parents in living out your call to the duties of your household, in the chores you have to do, and so on. We serve in many different capacities, and we are being served in many different capacities. But the question is for us today, in our Catholic schools, how can we teach this very important element of our lives that we call service? And service that will become a service in the love of Christ. Now, we need to find out, what is that difference? To serve in the love of Christ. Because at the gas station, I'm not quite sure the one serving me did so in the love of Christ. Maybe he did, but maybe he didn't. The people serving me at the table at the restaurant, did they serve me in the love of Christ? Did my altar servers serve me in the love of Christ? When you serve people, in whatever way you do you do that in such a way where you're very conscious that this is done in the love of Christ? Now maybe we'll have to ask ourselves, well, what does that mean? How is that a difference? And I think St. Peter, in our first letter today, gives us a good head start as to what this service calls us to do and to be mindful of the difference it does make. Let me just pick out a few of those sentences in that reading. Like good stewards of the manifold grace of God, and serve one another with whatever gift each of you has received. Just this understanding that we've all been graced and we've all been gifted in different ways. And to know that these gifts we've received are not for our own glory and for our own satisfaction. It is meant to be of service to the community. That is something we always should remind ourselves. That everything we receive from God is not meant to be for ourselves, but for the service of others. We're there to build the community of Christ with the gifts and the graces we receive. And then he carries on by saying this. Now listen carefully. Whoever speaks must do so as one speaking the very words of God. I'll have to watch myself. Every time I speak, to be aware that as one who lives my life in the footsteps of Christ, as one who models my life to the one of Christ, as one who's called to serve in the love of Christ, do my words always express the words of God? If your service is one where you talk a lot, then you need to ask yourself, well, in what way do I talk? Can people pick up God speaking to them through the service of your teaching? It has huge consequences, doesn't it? And moreover, it continues on and says, whoever serves must do so with the strength that God supplies. We have so much to learn just from that little sentence. Whoever serves must do so with the strength that God supplies. How many times do we go out and do wonderful things, but it's all from our pure human efforts? We don't invite God at all in whatever we do. It's our plan, it's our decisions, it's our way of doing things, and just God is just not part of the picture. And sometimes we do quite well, and we're proud of ourselves. And sometimes we fail miserably, and we wonder why. But regardless, if we are to serve, and to serve in the love of Christ, we need to know that whatever service we're going to provide, it has to be graced by God's help, by God's assistance. And know that you are going to be able to do so much more if you allow God to be your strength. That God may enlighten you in the plan you set out before you. That it's not your plan, but God's plan. I always teach the people I talk to about prayer life that when you go into prayer, it's not so much about telling God what to do for you, although we have many needs that we need to express to God. But the very first thing we need to learn about prayer life is not about telling God what to do. It's about asking God what He wants us to do. It's knowing His plan. It's knowing what He wants from us. And just imagine if everybody knew exactly what God wants of them, oh, this world would be a much different place, a much better place. So if we are to serve in the love of Christ, let's make good use of the strength that comes from God, knowing that we are listening to God's plan and doing our very best to do His will. In that way, you will be serving in the love of Christ, and it will make a difference. And your love will have an impact in ways that you've never imagined before. And as Catholic schools, if we can learn how to do that at all levels, in our classrooms, and at the higher levels, in the administration levels, at all levels, if we can learn how to do that and remind each other of how we're called to serve, but to do so in the love of Christ, I think we can make a huge difference, and a difference that will no longer keep people asking themselves, should we have a Catholic education system in our province? And because the question is still out there. And some people are wondering if we should publicly fund our Catholic school systems. We need to show them through our actions, through whatever we do, that there is a huge difference in our Catholic school system. And the consequences of what we're going to receive in those schools will make a better society. Will make better leaders in our government. Will make better leaders everywhere. Will make better parents. Will make better priests. This call to service is very important. And let's allow this particular week, where we will continue to develop the theme of this serving in the love of Christ, by talking about how we can serve with faithfulness, how we can serve with humility, how we can serve with compassion and justice, and how we can serve with joy. All different characteristics of how it is that we can serve in the love of Christ. Let's bring that to the Lord's intentions as when we bring our prayers to Him. I think we can use all the help the Lord can provide.